The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. Season 7 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Timebomb Trading, the Canadian distributor of Stance, Dragon, 32, and much more, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. The Boardroom Snowboard Shop is Vancouver's premier board shop with so many brands to choose from and the guaranteed best price. You probably don't need another reason to shop at one of their 3 locations in Vancouver and North Van. But they are also so confident in the products they carry and the expertise of their staff that they offer a 30-day performance guarantee on all purchases. What does that mean? If you're not completely stoked on your new purchase, return it with the original packaging in sellable conditions within 30 days for exchange or full refund. So the next time you need anything to do with snowboarding, get yourself down to the Boardroom or shop online at boardroomshop.com and use promo code FNRAD5 at checkout for 5% off everything they sell. Support also comes from Grouse Mountain, Mount Seymour, New Green Superfood Drink, Volcom Outerwear, Intuition Liners, and GoPro. Quinn Sandvold is a snowboarder's snowboarder. Quinn was pro for Nitro, Wave Rave, Twist, and eventually Quest snowboard clothing. Quinn's style and thinking helped inspire the new school movement of snowboarding. He was the very first person I heard of that had a 27-inch stance. He rode a 186 Nitro Diablo, and he rode out of Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I'm really happy to say he's come back to snowboarding after a 20-year hiatus. This is one of those interviews that I live for. I'm really proud to bring you the legendary Quinn Sandvold.
Steamboat for me was, as a little kid, I went up there for soccer tournaments. They had youth soccer, and they kept doing that. And then went up in 7th grade with a friend who went up there yearly for their winter carnival, and we had some of the best powder that I'd ever had in my life. And so that started my love of Steamboat, and then I was invited to be the first coach of the Steamboat Springs Winter Sports Club freestyle snowboard program. Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, so that was a whopping 6 kids that were all my friends. And
That's awesome.
But we did shovel the half pipe, and that was, I think, the second year I did that was the first year that we had a pipe dragon.
Oh, wow.
It was like the first pipe dragon.
Nice. Yeah. Those things always seem to break down. The pipe dragons, or whatever, they must have been expensive to run, or the cat drivers didn't like doing it or something, because we got a pipe dragon at Seymour, and I honestly can't remember them using it very much. Like, it just didn't. Maybe it's the coastal snow or something is so wet.
Could be.
Yeah.
And I think it was just all a learning process as well, and it basically put a transition in.
Yeah.
That you would then have to, like, create the rest of the lip, because it was like, oh, here's your 6 or 8 foot transition, and yeah, nothing like the pipe dragons today.
Oh God, yeah, it's gone insane, right?
Oh, I'd love to try
a 22 footer. Yeah.
Oh, my.
I've ridden one a couple of times, and I gotta say it's not fun at first, because it's so big and you're going so fast, and you're like, who the hell designed this shit?
Yeah, and how do I get over the lip?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's like Danny Way and Matt Hoffman kind of shit, right? Like guys that are just pushing, like, whatever's happening at the time. They're like, let's double it.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's double it. Like an 11-foot half pipe for me would be perfect. Double it. It's a 22, and it's a nightmare.
No, that's a lot of consequence.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You fall in love with Steamboat in junior high. When do you get your first snowboard? Like, you're probably skiing at that point, right?
Yeah. We snowboarded a little bit. The first board that I remember a friend of mine had was the Sims. It was just a wood, maybe 8 inches wide.
Yeah.
Rubber straps, rope on the front.
I just saw one at the Snowboard Museum.
Yeah, that's exact same model.
Oh, sick.
Yeah,
and it's basically a knockoff of what Burton's doing at that time, like the Burton Woody or Backyard or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
And a lot of people did those. I saw the Swift that Tracy and those guys have.
Yeah. The Snurfer.
Snow Tech. Ernie DeLost had one that they all kind of look the same.
Yeah.
You know, Tracy and those guys put the fins up on the front to make, you know, there's a whole bunch of things bolted to all these things to make them track straight.
Yeah.
In fact, I interviewed Donna Carpenter, and she said in the early dating of Jake, he took her out to show her what these boards could do.
That's
and
awesome.
She rode down, fell, the board went flying, and he came down to where she was, put the board right next to the track that her board just took, and stuck it in the snow and pushed it, and it went right to where her board was without hitting it, like right beside it. So I guess like they're thinking like, hey, these things track perfect. Yeah. That's what they're going for. It's like you just stand on them and they go where they go.
Yeah, it's amazing to think of that.
Yeah,
that timing.
Did you guys pull the fins off of yours and just try and hit jumps and stuff with it, or?
For me, it was fun. We just did it locally at Chautauqua, and you talked with Trent Bush, and he was in that same group of folks. You know, I was still skiing. I grew up skiing, and I was a really good bump skier at the time, and sort of was thinking I could be a competitive bump skier.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy the feeling of the snowboarding, but in my mind I said it's going to get better, and I'm going to wait till I see something that's actually a little bit more fun to ride.
Yeah.
And then the back hill came out where it actually had a little bit better binding, and what Sims had another one. I can't remember the names, but it was, then I just said, okay, this is, when I first rode that, I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I tried skiing one more time. You know, it was like one run, and I said, that's it. I mean, I'm never going to do that again. Yeah. And the boots, you know, as well.
Yeah, that's the big thing, was the boots, huh? But more the attitude, right? Like, were you a skater already at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like skiing and skating, you know, when we were so young, it was like, yeah, why wouldn't you do both? But then as soon as there was snowboarding, it's like, you're not going to do skating on the weekends and then skiing. Or, yeah. No.
Oh, yeah. And it was meant to be. I mean, standing sideways is...
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way better. Yeah, it's just way better.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I was just easily switched over. And
where's the first place you rode the board on lifts?
On lifts was Berthoud Pass. Yeah. Yeah, it was still open. They had a T-bar or a Poma and then a lift on the other side. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we would do that.
So you're a part of that group that was there like right at the beginning. That's the beginning of Colorado's like lift access snowboarding. Yeah. Yeah. And those palm lifts suck for those early boarders.
They were tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember my friend got on and he's like, it's hard, but just follow me up. And poor guy, he fell over and he's holding on to the thing, getting dragged up, and I'm barely hanging on, just watching him getting, drug up, and he finally lets go, and I'm still going, and he's like, you can make it, Quinn.
Yeah.
You can make it.
I love that.
Yeah, I got to the steep part and just tumbled as well, but it was all good.
Yeah, I had the exact same experience. Yeah, it was impossible.
Yeah.
There was a lot of carnage, and it went straight up. So like when someone fell down, they'd just take out everybody down. Yeah, that's nuts.
And fun.
Yeah, and fun. Yeah, totally addictive. Part of early snowboarding was being able to ride a T-bar. Yeah. You felt like, fuck yeah.
Absolutely.
This is badass. There was good style to it too. Like if you're holding the front, or when you got it so that you could get it behind you, and it would just like, then you could just be casual, look cool, instead of being like gripped the whole way up.
Yeah, white knuckle in it.
But the best is two people actually, like a goofy and a reg. That's the absolute best for a T-bar.
Yeah,
and then later on we would push each other off. I can remember going to Baker and like somebody would literally push you as hard as they could when you would get off those steep in runs, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and that was a challenge in itself too. Just that last.
Yeah. Chair 5 and 6. Like that was people would strap in on the chair. It was that scary.
Right, just to get off.
Yeah, totally. So
That's awesome.
when do you start competing? Do you do the competitions? Is that how you get sponsored and the whole thing starts? Or
Yeah, I don't even know if we had like local like jump contests or anything, but we had the Colorado Snowboard Series, which they had amateur and professional. No, just amateur. I think it was all amateur.
Yeah.
It was. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So all those, and they had the East Coast Series, and with the Rocky Mountain, seemed to draw the most people to come and compete on that series. And it went all over Colorado, and those were the days. I mean, that was super fun.
Yeah.
Amazing fun. Yeah. Yeah. And small areas usually with super cool local crews. Everyone's kicking in, digging the half pipes. And yeah, I mean, it was truly the time of the making it happen for competitions. And yeah, and a lot of those guys were, the guys that did go on to be our top pro competitors.
Yeah. Well, there's the Green Mountain Series in the East, and then, there was an USASA or something going on in the West. But because you guys are so central, I mean, a guy from Idaho, all the way over could convince his parents or her parents to bring them to, your contest series. Rocky Mountain Series did draw a lot of people. That's why the Worlds were here, I would imagine, too. Once they started doing those. Yeah.
Breckenridge and.
Yeah. Did you compete in those?
I did not. Not the early ones. No, I was snowboarding, but at an amateur level and really in awe.
Did you go and see them?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was a spectator. For sure.
Who was your guy?
Terry Kidwell and Craig Kelly.
Yeah.
Were the two that I really appreciated style wise. Noah Brandon was another one that was just phenomenal. It's hard for me to place like those contests sort of mush together, and a lot of that time mushes together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just always blown away. Shaun Palmer did some crazy stuff that was, I always looked up to him as a snowboarder and pioneer.
He had so much passion. He still does.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was nuts. That's what I was saying to Chad. I'm like, thinking about Farmer being at A Basin and looking at all those lines around there, like I'd imagine it would be hard to keep him off stuff, like, and your snowpack is notoriously dangerous. So I can't even imagine the shenanigans that guy got up to out here.
Yeah. I mean, he was like true big mountain rider, but he could do anything, all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw him do stuff in small half pipes that was just like, what? Okay, that's really cool.
Dope.
And that really inspired me a lot. Also people's attitudes inspired me a lot. Those different people that were just good. I don't know. I felt like better souls.
Yeah, man.
In it for the right reasons and stuck to their guns.
Yeah, the bean counters are on the other side of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So competing as an amateur was great. Did a lot of good traveling and won the 89 U.S. Open for amateurs.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So that was like the first big contest I competed against pros and placed 8th overall, which to me was huge. I'm like, holy cow, top 10. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. And had a really fun time. And then Sims picked me up for the next year for my first professional.
Was it Brad or was it Tom or?
It was Brad.
Yeah.
The photographer's name, I can't believe it's slipping. Guy Motil.
Oh, sick. Very first Transworld photographer.
Yeah. So Guy, it was the first time I'd really met him, and we actually got along pretty well, and he'd been taking some pictures, and he was the one that actually talked to Sims and said, I think you need to take a look at this guy. Yeah.
That's actually a pretty big pedigree. Like, that's like, if the photographers, because those are the shining stars, are the guys that the photographers pick out. Like, I like this guy's style. He's good to shoot with. I suggest you pick him up. Like, that's a big deal. That's rad.
It was really cool, and we had a good relationship. Didn't do a lot of shoots together,
right?
But kept a good relationship nonetheless.
Yeah. So how do you get to where was that U.S. Open? Is that Stratton already?
That was in Stratton.
Yeah. How do you get there? You guys drive there? Or your dad drive you or something?
Well, I flew out.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. I flew to Boston and then took a bus. Yeah.
How old are you at this point?
I guess 21.
Yeah.
Probably 21.
That's fun.
Yeah. And took a bus and stayed with the Sims team. Graciously had me on the floor. Amazing. And well, not the first year. No, that was the second year I stayed with the Sims team.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't even remember where I stayed. I met some really fun people though in the condos that they had.
Yeah. I went to a Transworld industry conference one time with nowhere to stay. Like, just you go to the village, and it was in Big Sky.
Yeah, oh, nice.
And then I just looking around, like, who do I know here? Hey, can I crash on your floor? Yeah. And then pushing for a cot. Hey, maybe they got cots at this place, you know? Like,
anything. Yeah.
Man.
Was that back in the 90s?
Yeah, it was really almost mid 90s. Yeah.
So I think I was at that same one.
That was fun.
At Big Sky. Actually, George Klechner.
I know the name. I don't know that I've ever met George.
George lives in Pagosa. He's been a good friend for a long time, and he's the founder of Union Bindings.
Right.
Yeah. So George and I took off from Steamboat and went up for that.
Yeah, because you could drive there from here, right? Or would you fly?
No, we drove.
Yeah.
Rented a car, drove.
Yeah, Tom Burt was at that one, and I shot photos with not Rob Gracie.
I know Rob. Went to high school with Rob Gracie.
Was it Rob Gracie? Was he the one with Jimmy Scott? Yeah, Rob Gracie. You went to high school with that guy?
Yeah, all tattooed and
Yeah,
Rob Gracie.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's sick.
Yeah,
yeah. That was a fun gathering of the industry, right? Like you could see there was a lot of riders there.
Yeah.
Devin and Dow and Roberta were there, and from Canada we had a bunch of. It was just so much fun.
Yeah. Oh, it was a really, really interesting gathering.
The groomers were good there. That was the thing. Like, because I come from like a coastal climate, so the groomers suck all the time because if they groom at night, they freeze.
Right. It's solid.
It's just frozen. Like you could feel each.
Oh.
And when you fall, it just tears you up. It sucks.
Oh, it's brutal.
But like somewhere like Montana where it's cold all the time, the groomers are the shit. If it's not POW.
Yeah.
I can remember it snowed when we were there and being like, oh, this place kind of sucks for powder because it was pretty low angle.
And it was just not a lot of snow that year, I remember.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah. We just found a hit run. That was always our MO.
Right.
Like, you link up with the locals, find the hit run.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to ride anything else. You're not riding around. Where are the biggest jumps?
Yeah, and good fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Good lines for that. And the trees were sketchy there because they leave all the fallen lumber.
Oh, no.
That always, yeah. Yeah, well, I went there with Perry Coleman the year before. We went up there, and we got there at night, and they had night skiing. And so we're like, well, let's do it. And we went straight into the trees. We're like, how come no one goes in the trees here? This is ridiculous. And we do a run and another run, and we're like, this is crazy. And then the next day we looked at our tracks, and it was just uncovered all these logs that any one of them would have snapped our legs or knees.
Put an arm in and
Oh, yeah. And we're like, no wonder. We better stay out of the trees here. But that was, big sky as well.
I picture you being like a hardcore, jibber. I've been talking to you for 10 minutes, and it's obvious that you're passionate about POW too, right? Like, POW turns are the shit. Like,
oh yeah,
turning in powder is the best. Jumping in powder is the best.
Yeah. Everything was secondary to big, just powder turns. I mean, we'd not practice. We'd go make powder turns before the contest.
Yeah.
And do no practice runs, to get the powder turns in. So, and then just the progression of the sport, being a skateboarder and stuff, that's where, to me, hitting these obstacles and starting to ollie ropes and fences and get those super sweet drops.
Yeah.
Afterward, that was a feeling you couldn't get on a skateboard.
Yeah.
It's like big ollie and then, oh my gosh, I've got 20 to whatever feet down,
Yeah.
And that, to me, was a fantastic feeling. And just truly ollieing a snowboard from flat, that's as we were talking a little bit earlier, physics.
Yeah.
There's some physics involved in getting that to happen. And so ollieing onto rails and all those things. And it got to be, the more difficult, the more challenging, the harder the repercussions might be if you slam.
Yeah.
The more fun it got, and the farther we tried to slide that rail, or things that would then get marked off.
Yeah. That's
say, like, you can't do that here anymore because everyone's trying it, and we're getting a lot of injuries.
So you mentioned Farmer, because I imagine he would have been like pushing you in that direction of those long boards, because that is what I remember you for riding that Diablo 186, but freestyling on it. Like, you weren't just like bagging lines. You were bringing that thing pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, that was the board of choice.
Yeah,
for sure. It's hard to say. There were long boards. We had several makers. Aggression was also in Boulder.
Yep.
And making boards for Dave Dowd and Tony King. And those guys were speed demons. I mean, wanted to set the world speed record. And so that was a lot of the longer boards for that. And then Farmer was riding it just, big mountain stuff that I remember.
Yeah.
And we just had a different, when I moved to Steamboat out of Summit, it just, totally different vibe, much more mellow. And I think it just sort of pushed that, like riding for Nitro, having that board available and pushing the stances.
Big time.
Yeah. And that's the board that really did it for us to say this is an okay 17-inch stance way back on the tail.
Yeah.
It was like, board looks good, but where are we going to stand on it? Like, where are we going to stand on it? Yeah.
So did you get the tools to drill out the T-nuts and stuff? Like, was that already happening because people are bolting stuff to boards anyways?
Right. I can't say for who did it first or any of that, but we were using hardware from the hardware store.
Yep.
And doing it that way, drilling and just getting the right size drill bits, countersinking.
Yeah.
And it evolved once they saw a need for it. But yeah, that was just evolution in its purest form of, let's lay the board down on the floor of the shop, mark where my feet are because this looks good, feels good.
Yeah.
We drilled it. It was Perry Coleman and myself. Each had the same board.
Brad.
Yeah, and we drilled the same stances, and both turned out to be 27-inch.
Yeah, they must have printed it in a magazine or something that you guys were at 27-inch stances.
Those boards were narrow.
They were so narrow.
Yeah. I mean, toe drag for people with smaller feet, too. And,
yeah.
And to have that little bit of width as you went out helped.
That's true. Right.
Because you're at least getting into a little bit of the wider, part of the side cut.
And then you made those boards work for freestyle. Like, I guess you just get used to what you're riding, right? Like you're not riding some small little resort. You're riding, a relatively big mountain. You're just going fast, hitting stuff.
Yeah, and for POW, I mean, it was amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And for me, having a twin tip was huge. It wasn't completely centered side cut, but close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been pushing for that. How do you get on Nitro from Sims?
Well, yeah, it's a fun. Well, I left Sims, basically told the team and Tom and the managers to, fuck off, and I think y'all suck. It was terrible. Yeah, I made my way out to California. I'll come up with the name. It was for a contest in California. It was a pro contest. It was like my first sort of traveling pro contest, and so I bus out there. I Greyhound out there, and my bag with my boards, my boots, all my gear gets stolen.
Oh no!
In Salt Lake. So I show up in California with basically nothing, just like street clothes and a couple pairs of snowboard pants and jackets, and and so I'm like, all right, we got this. It was like the first sort of not street style, but banks and gates and what was that called?
Slope style. Yeah. But it was before that. Yeah.
Way before that.
Yeah. Obstacle course is what Jay Balmer called his at Whistler.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just to like put some random turns and banks and really go for it.
Yeah.
And so I had no boards, and I had to rent a board. None of the pros that were there would give me boards. They had all these prototypes that were brought.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it was the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, seriously, you guys, no one can like give me one of their old boards to use? No. So I rent a board
good.
from a shop. The only one they had left, it was a Kidwell, and had an edge, about 8 inches of edge just gone on the heel edge. And they're like, well, that's all we got, but you're welcome to it. So that's what I rode for the race day.
Well, I still can't believe this, because those guys are traveling with stacks of boards.
Stacks, and they were brought like all these new prototypes to like try out. And the June Mountain, that's the name of it.
June Mountain.
June.
Yes. Yeah.
And so anyway, I did pretty well, and they were impressed with how I did. So that night they're having a big team meeting at the condo, and everyone's again talking about the boards that they rode, and I'm like, well, how about anybody want to lend me a board? We got the half pipe tomorrow, and I had to rent this board, and they're sort of like, no one sort of bucked up, and finally somebody ended up getting one of them and gave it to me. I had to drill it that night, rode it the next day. Fell, probably one of the biggest concussions I got snowboarding.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was just icy pipe.
Yeah.
I mean, big for the time, really big icy pipe. And I was doing a backside 360 and just caught the lip, heel side, and just straight to the bottom.
Oh.
I mean, out cold. And came to, and it was Tom Burt and Steve Graham were the two people that I saw.
Wow.
And I looked at them, and in my mind, I'd been playing basketball. So when I was out, I was somewhere playing basketball. And so when I look at Tom and Steve, I look at Tom and I go, well, now I can see playing basketball. And I look at Grammy and I'm like, but you're way too little. You're way too short. What are you doing out here playing basketball? And we're sitting at the bottom of this half pipe, and they're looking at me like, Quinn, what? Hey, it's me.
Yeah.
And
how many fingers am I holding up?
Yeah, and then I finally was like, oh my gosh, Tom, what's up, Steve? Other people were there then, and nobody does anything about concussions at that point.
No.
I competed. I ended up trying to ride, not doing very well. Was surfing the next day, went home with Greg Tomlinson. I was staying with him, and
Yeah.
went back to Dana Point, was surfing the next day, not even thinking about head injuries. And so after that contest, I went up to Squaw Valley.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, we'll pay for all your stuff once you get up there. And
Killer.
yeah, so I was like, okay, great. And did a day riding, and was like, how about the contest fee? They're like, oh, we're not going to pay for your contest fee. I'm like, well, are you kidding me? I'm out here from Colorado. I've done all this with you guys. And
Yeah, you paid for the bus. Like you're paying for your food. You're
everything.
not at home.
No, yeah, and being dissed from boards and treated
and what's
really
the contest
poorly.
fee, like $20 or $50 or
I think
something?
it was like $50 then.
Yeah, like it's a substantial amount of money.
Yeah, at that point, for sure. So I went back. They're like, no, we're not going to. And I went back to the condo, and it was, this whole huge group of people. And I just basically was like, fuck you. All of you.
Yeah.
From day one, you've treated me like shit. You wouldn't help me on any level. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm going to Colorado. I'm not going to ride a Sims board. I'm going to go probably win a contest and
Yeah.
actually make some money.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that.
Who was in the room? Was it like Tom and
Everybody, Tom and
Kidwell and Kelly and Todd Richards and
Wendell and Palmer.
Oh my God.
I just called them all out. Like, y'all are fucking punks.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you, seriously. Like, that's how you treat someone that's on your team?
Did
like,
somebody come after you like, Quinn, man, no, wait, don't go?
No. I got a ride, and I can't remember her name right now. She was one of the top women racers. She did amazing in the gates and free riding.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, man, I'll take you to the airport.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And just drove me to the airport, and she's like, good for you, Quinn, like standing up for yourself. I'm like, yeah, that's just crazy. Like, who does that to people, And I don't remember how I actually got hooked up with Nitro, but
probably a trade show. Would you go out to a trade show?
Yeah, but I think someone came to me.
Epic.
And, a local one, someone who knew that I had left Sims.
Yeah.
And then I stayed with Nitro till the end of my career.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how early into it do you meet Tommy? Like,
Pretty early. Yeah,
Right.
because it was pretty intimate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very small, company at that point.
Yeah.
And it was Windline Distributors.
That's right. I remember those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of Seattle.
Yeah. And the boards are better anyways, like at that point. I mean, Sims starts getting better, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. And, but those Nitro boards I talk about them a lot, actually, because I had a Pyro, and I had a Pyro at the same time that I had like a Barfoot Freestyle. You know what I mean? Like those boards are two different eras completely.
Yeah. The Barfoot was what I rode quite a bit.
Yeah.
As my first boards. That was the first board I ever bought.
Rad.
Barfoot Freestyle, yeah.
It's a good board.
Awesome.
Very stiff, but good. Like, yeah, fun board to ride, good dimensions. I was talking with Ernie DeLost, who designed that with Chuck, and they could make that board right now. I was like, dude, just make it flex. Just make it flex in the middle.
Yeah.
And that shape is epic.
Oh, it'd be phenomenal.
Yeah.
The horizontal laminate.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun.
Yeah.
That's good that you had that, because that gets you, I'm sure there's, for everybody who lucked out and got like a good board in those days, there was 10 that just bought a piece of shit and was like, snowboarding's not really for me.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. In one of the early demo days contests at Eldora, I was riding a Barfoot. That was one of the first days that I'd seen Farmer ride and Wendell and a few other people riding the half pipe that we had there. And I was riding a Barfoot, and disasters were big. You do as big airs as you could, to disaster. And I snapped the barfoot freestyle, and it was just right by the binding, and Chuck was there with his demos. Like, he had his van, and he's like, oh my gosh, you snapped that. Here, take another one.
Nice.
I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? He's like, no, man, I've never seen one like just snap right there like that. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, that one ended up breaking too. And he's like, I apologize, but you're doing stuff I haven't put these boards through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ended up, him giving me another one to sort of just, it was him being Chuck and a nice guy saying, holy cow, I'd love to have you. I never thought of it as a sponsorship or anything, but a start of a nice friendship.
Yeah. That dude's sick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a huge sweetheart. Ernie as well.
Yep.
The two of those guys together, that's like a friendship that, makes you smile.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that was a fabulous day in my memory of snowboarding, and changed my life.
Did you break two boards in the same day?
Yeah. It was just because everyone was really showing off. It was like, snowboarding was so like, what are you guys doing? And, well, what have you been doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just, so fun. Yeah, so good.
It's super dope.
Yeah.
So did you go from that barfoot to the Sims thing? Like, did you go to the U.S. Open on that barfoot?
I was actually riding a Kemper because I would just ride what I won. As an amateur, they give you a snowboard.
Oh, wow.
Here's,
You won the contest, and Kemper gave us a board. What Kemper was it?
Kemper Freestyle.
Was it the black or the white one because you're a kid? Or was it the green one?
That green sort of.
Oh, shit. You still have it?
I don't. No.
Oh, man.
I don't have any of those older boards. I wish I would have kept them.
Yeah, I'm looking for one for Jamie Salter. He's the guy that actually designed that thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Don't know him well, but I do know him.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's incredible that you know him.
So that was like the board that I had won, but if I didn't want the board, you'd sell them, and that's sort of how you made your living, was selling the board that you'd won.
Yeah.
Or whatever you'd won that you didn't like or want.
If you were on those Kemper boards at that time, they were groundbreaking. Like, they were good
absolutely.
Boards. They were like a freestyle board. It said right on it, this is for freestyle.
Yeah.
And it was, even that first one was even a little more round and everything than the next one became more pointed. But I think that first one was really 5 years ahead, 3 years ahead. Even if it was a year ahead, it was, it was sick.
It was well ahead of its time.
Yeah. Cool.
I think for sure. But then again, you had this weird stance option.
Yeah. But the weird stance option was just those lines on the board. You could just put it wherever. But then you'd go outside the plate.
Inserts?
They had no inserts. It was just those lines.
That's right.
It gave you like a put your binding here and then drill it out or whatever.
Right, with the wood screws, metal screws.
But then you get outside the wood retention or the metal retention plate, and you knew, it's not really designed for this wide of a stance, but you could do it.
That's right.
And then you know what Dave Dowd said yesterday? There's a photo kind of like him like that on the wall of him dropping a cliff, and he goes, after that cliff, both my bindings pulled out.
Both.
And he grabbed his board and he just stomped the screws back in the holes and rode down the rest of the run.
I can see that. What other option you got? Right?
You got nothing.
That's so good.
Stomp those things in. I can remember going back to the car, you'd be riding a chairlift and you'd pull out a binding, oh no. And then by the end of the board, you'd have 30 screws in that binding. You'd just be, and sometimes you'd find, because the challenge was to find the fattest thread on a screw that you could that wasn't so long that it would go right through the thing, right?
Yeah, you'd get maybe 1.5 turns.
Yep, and then you'd feel it bumping through the base, and you'd be like, oh. I need a washer with this one, and then you get a washer. And now you've got these bumps in your bindings that are holding snow. Yeah, it was a nightmare to keep bindings on those boards.
It really was.
But the board shape, like if you did that exact board, everything's too narrow at that point. But yeah,
and they were closer, I think.
Yeah, way closer
at that point.
Yeah. Did you know Pappas at all? Did you ever?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when he was on Kemper, that's pretty badass time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kemper for Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was good. The Pappases and Andy Hetzel was Kemper.
Yeah, Noah Salaz was Kemper.
Yep, Selaznick. Oh, man.
The Bassages and so many people.
Yep.
Jeff and Joe Curtis. Like,
Yeah.
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 J.D. Platt. I always forget to say J.D. Platt because he was a big part of that too.
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, those Summit County early when Kemper was happening and whatnot, there was a lot of progressive stuff happening.
Yeah.
And the West Coast that was out there had a different competitive sort of style than the Colorado, but it really pushed us, I think, in a good way.
Cool.
Yeah. And I've thanked Andy for that, for being him, and
Yeah.
it was like you helped push a lot of us to do things that we might not have without that whole influence.
That's rad.
Yeah, and he's a hardcore dude.
Hell yeah.
That's always was, man. Yeah.
Vert skater.
Oh yeah.
I think there's a pedigree when you're a vert skater. You know what I mean? Like you can come in with some attitude.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
call some shit out. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
This is wacky. Sure. What everybody's doing here is whack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun. Yeah.
It's funny that he was the mogul champ. He's still the world champion of moguls because that was the last time that there was a world champ.
Right.
Andy Hetzel.
That's awesome. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when does the outerwear design stuff pop in? Like I imagine you probably were wearing, fireman's jackets or whatever big kind of baggy shit you could find before that was happening.
Well, it was Wave Rave was my first sponsor.
Yeah.
I think anything we had, we would make into snowboard pants. I remember playing around just finding stuff at thrift stores, sewing on some nylon on the butt and the knees.
Yeah.
And I'd go over to Troy and Trent. We'd silk screen it with funny little twist silk screens. And
sick.
Yeah. Fully original stuff.
Yeah.
Some of which I still have.
Dope.
Yeah. But then Wave Rave was a local shop. They started making snowboard clothing and got sponsored by them. And over the years quickly was like, come on, you guys, let's make some other better stuff. And got to the point, after many years, I was like, either we start making something that I really like to wear or I'm going to head out.
They probably did the year after you left or maybe 2 years after you left. Hey, I remember those big, wide Wave Rave things.
Well, we did. So they said, yeah, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to do a line Quest. And I want to do, small line. We came up with the 5 pieces and it was great. Worked with Natalie Murphy as, their designer and did some of the logo stuff with Heavy D, Mike Dawson, who did all the Nitro graphics and
oh, rad.
Still, I don't know who he's working with now, but still's in the industry, I think. And
that's dope. So
worked with him on some of the logo stuff and got it produced and it sold 1.2 million.
Shit.
The first year. So that was 93, 94. And they couldn't manufacture that much, but that's what the worldwide demand was. And they were having some troubles, and it pulled them out of their financial troubles. Those sales.
Rad.
Was great.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah. And then did a second year of that. Sales went up, I think, 1.6 million, and changed some of the items and added a couple pieces. They again couldn't produce it, but produced what they could. And then we had disagreements as to what should happen from there. I was getting a small percentage of sales, which made sense to me.
Yeah.
If they're making a lot of money, I could make a little bit of that.
Sure.
And So it suggested just a little bit better sliding scale. As they made more money, I would also make more money.
Yeah.
And they said, absolutely not. We want you to come into the office and spend time in the office. I said, that sounds great. I'd love to learn A, B, C, and D. And they said, well, we're not going to pay you for your time in the office. I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous,
Yeah.
So that basically ended the relationship that they wanted to keep the contract the same. And so for me, it was just a jealousy-based, how can this guy snowboard and make money while we're in the office?
It seems like when you come to the bean counter side of things, they diminish over time what it means to have someone with boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Someone who's riding,
Yep.
who's innovating, who can tell you, this cuff is too tight. These belt loops rip off.
Yeah.
Like, this shit sucks. Fix it.
Yeah.
Make it better.
Yep.
So that when I get it, I'm like, oh shit, Quinn's riding this shit. I want to have those pants. When I get it, they don't suck.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you got a bunch of suits in a warehouse somewhere saying, oh, this looks nice or this looks good. You see what's going on the snow. People are cutting their pants and sewing fucking denim strips down the side so that they're wider.
They're bigger.
And they're not tapered at the bottom. That taper was something that was there for so long that was just like...
It was a remnant of skiing.
Yes.
Style.
Yeah.
That came over. It had to fit around your boot.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have edges rubbing on our pant bottoms.
Yeah. Or even if we did, who cares? Like,
right, at that point, yeah.
Remember how ripped up your pants would be by the end of the season?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have slices in them from hitting rocks or whatever. Yeah, that's when that. Yeah, that shit's awesome.
Yeah, and you'd see the urban kids coming up actually wearing their jeans.
Yep.
And flannels.
Yep.
Freezing cold, frozen, soaking wet. Right. It's like, enough of this.
Yeah.
People want to wear what they want to wear in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to look a certain way. There's an aesthetic that we're trying to pull off here, that when you give us some clown pants with big knee patches and a scrunchie around the boot,
yeah,
I can't make this work.
Yeah. Yeah, and the colors got crazy, and what you had to wear on a photo shoot, just like, you got to be kidding.
How did you deal with Tommy? This is something that when you were talking about the graphic designer for Nitro, those graphics stood out. Like the dragon graphic on the Diablo.
Yeah.
That shit's fucking like tattoos and dope. Like that was a really big part of, because you just get a board and the graphic would suck and you just spray paint it.
Yeah, sticker it up. Paint it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Diablo was actually sick.
It was, and that's all Mike Dawson. I mean, he did all the graphic stuff.
Yeah.
So that in those early, I really had no say.
Got it.
In any of the graphic stuff.
Yeah.
Advertising, we talked about some really cool things on my wall. That one you can see right there. That was a concept idea that, Mike and I talked about. I said, I've got this really cool idea, having my dad shaving my head.
That's your dad?
That's my dad.
Oh, dude, that's so sick.
Yeah. And so, we talked about this concept while we're driving to Steamboat. Incredible, sunset coming over Rabbit Ears. Just one of those good friends times. And looking back, we were talking snowboard history. We're shaping what we wanted this to represent. And so we came up with that idea, and it was like, well, we just need a sequence now.
Yeah.
And then we got that sequence, and it all sort of came to fruition.
It's beautiful.
I wanted it to be something fakie to fakie, because that had been my passion since I started snowboarding, to become equally as good left or right foot forward. And that was a ollie. That was a major physics accomplishment right there. First attempt.
Yeah.
Just looked at it, told Brunkart, the photographer, hey, get down. I'm going to ollie that rock. What? Well, just get down where you can see it. I'm going to ollie the rock. What do you mean? Well, I'm going to ollie the rock. Just came ripping at it and ollied it, landed. I was like, man, that was awesome. Thought I was going to die maybe, like hit that, I think I maybe did tick the rock. And
yeah.
Anyway, it was just one of those things. It was like, can't believe I did it. And it was actually somewhere published and on footage to start with at all. And
people who were paying attention, that was the thing. That was the thing. To see somebody riding fakie. I remember Devin on that trip to Montana for the Transworld thing.
Yep.
He was practicing just switch everything. Fakie, like every grab. He was talking about his trick list, like what he had forward and where he was fakie. And he was lamenting about switch methods. Mm-hmm. He's like, dude, you have no idea how hard it is to make it look right. And I was like, what? It's the same as anything else. I couldn't do it. I probably still can't do it.
It is an awkwardness.
Yes.
For sure to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The competitions throughout amateur and pro, I continually had to write like tip and tail or
for the judges,
forward and backward.
Yeah, like paint a big arrow on it.
Yeah, so it was clear. I would do runs completely like all backwards.
Yeah. Nice.
And I would be like, I thought that was a pretty good run, like for myself and
yes,
even amongst some of the competitors. And I'd get, like fourth or something. I'm like, did you not see what happened there? Like, I'm confused. Like, and it was again, like who was doing the J tear air or who did these tricks that you had to do.
Yes.
I was like, I don't do those tricks. I do what I like to do. And this is what makes me feel like I'm alive.
Right.
And progressing,
Were you a bit of a badass at the time? Like, were you, like for whatever reason, I have this kind of vision in my head of like smoking and drinking and just not giving a fuck. And being able to just say to like the judging, so like Craig's up there going, oh, or whatever. And you're like, this is fucking bullshit.
That was unfortunately too much of me. It was the bullshit end of it. Yeah. And I didn't smoke, but I did drink.
Yeah.
And I really, definitely skateboarding. And I was a punker for a lot of my life. And I definitely have that attitude. As many snowboarders would, drew them to the difference of it. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And it became a problem with the judges, that first year I did or second year maybe I did the U.S. Open. Like I had the whole crowd chanting, "Fuck the judges. Fuck the judges."
Yes, that is so sick.
At the award ceremony thing, at the bottom. And I made it very clear to the Colorado judges that I thought what they did was unfair and I paid for it.
Yeah.
For sure.
They were like, that guy's making us look bad.
Yeah.
So we control the thing. Oh, here comes Quinn Sandvold. All right.
So
not doing so good. Yeah.
I quickly got out of that as quick as I could. And of course, sponsors want you to be more visible and doing things. And I said, well, there's a lot of ways we can make people visible, and myself,
yeah,
and had a lot of ideas that were shut down, a lot, and that was my problem in snowboarding in general. I was too far ahead of my time, wanted things to progress. They would, but just way too slowly, and I'd see their new jacket. Hey, look at this new jacket I did. Yeah, this drawing I showed you 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You mean this jacket? Just that over and over. And, snowboard ideas through Nitro, just slow as can be.
That's why I was asking about Tommy, because I was working with the distributor for Rad Air. Mm-hmm. And we would go into these meetings and go, okay, can we address the name again?
Right.
Like you change from Crazy Banana, right? Because it's Crazy Banana.
Yeah.
Harry would look at his partner and go, Rad Air, it's rad. It's a rad name, right? It's super rad.
Yep.
So, I could imagine having that same sort of issue with Nitro, although it had that USA feel. Like they were deliberately saying Nitro USA.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Compete with Sims and Burton and
That was their deal.
upcoming Never Summer and all these guys that are, people that were making boards that were making changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I never got to ride these boards. I mean, I just rode what I had, the Nitro, and I'm like, man, that sure looks fun, even though I know Tarquin was breaking every other one or or whatever.
They were working it out, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing about those Nitros. They didn't break until you drilled them. Like if you mounted them on the inserts, they rode really well. They were just straight Pele boards. They were, damp and I remember feeling like a brand new board out of the bag. It didn't matter what board it was. Sharp edges, like the new flex. It was fun to ride.
Yeah. Until they died. Until they quickly lost their life.
That's it. Yeah. A month into it, you're like, oh, I need another board.
Yeah.
I need something with that pop and that flex and the edge grip and all that stuff.
Yeah. So it was, I never got to ride the board I really wanted to ride.
Right.
I knew I'd probably never get a pro model with Nitro. They had different people they were pushing. And
what was going on with Jeff? Oh, Jeff Davis was playing the game.
Jeff Davis, for sure. Well, they were, Utah based. It was just, that was the crew, really.
But Jeff was a badass motherfucker. Like that.
Jeff was awesome.
Yeah, like
awesome.
The
guy.
crippler, and like he was like, he was going to be on Burton. You know what I mean? Like, or he was on Burton. He was going to get a pro model with Burton, and then they, decided against it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and I never really even cared if my name was on it.
Right.
As much as just make me a board that I want to ride.
Right.
Please.
Yes.
That's all. Like, can we do this?
What's the closest you ever got?
Probably that prototype I showed you, that 176. It was a bit wider.
Yep.
But just, it didn't last.
Yeah, you broke the nose or the tail on it right away.
It just all fell apart.
Oh man. Yeah.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we. Do you remember Shift Custom Rides?
Absolutely.
The business that came out?
Yeah.
So it was Drew Hicken and Ken Kelly.
Cool.
They were not... Actually, that was the brainchild of myself, Perry Coleman, Mike Dawson. Pretty much the three of us started this concept for Shift Custom Rides.
Yep.
We brought in Tony King and his partner at the time, who had a lot of knowledge. They were making, they had a press that they could fully adjust.
Cool.
To make prototypes and autoclave technology they'd been working on. And we had board shapes, graphics, we had business plan all coming together to leave Nitro, start Shift Custom Rides.
Yeah.
Ken Kelly somehow got in and Drew Hicken somehow got in. People invested money.
Yeah.
We're ready to go with this. Drew and Ken took all the info, started it on their own.
Oh, no.
That's as close as I've gotten to riding the board I wanted to ride.
Yeah.
Which was not close at all.
No.
And they drove it into the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrible and a sign of the times.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't execute it at all. Yeah. They didn't have the drive. They didn't have our thought process. They didn't have the innovative concepts.
Right.
Any of it.
Right.
So they just fucked it.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
And that truly could have changed the industry. Our goal was to really start a prototype company that could turn around in, hopefully up to a day after you get things dialed in, but 2 to 3 days, here's 10 boards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different flexes of 3 boards or whatever you want, shapes, and it was going to be truly different. And we were working on an edge, a true snowboard edge, with the local engineer.
No way.
Yeah.
What would the difference be?
Well, it would have been much stronger. Yeah, they would have been seated in differently. Just it would have been used probably with skiing too. Yeah,
because that's what happens if you end up making something that's better than what's available. then your shit just takes over.
Yeah.
That's incredible that you were working on something like that. So the edges are still the same now that they've always
for the
been.
most part. Yeah.
Yeah.
The little things that they've added.
Yeah.
Materials and kinks.
Yeah.
And different, but
yeah. Rob Dow figured out how to do a continuous edge with a single weld at where they meet the tip and tail.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he patented that even.
That's great.
Yeah.
But it was just a matter of people not willing to retool. So we were willing to say, well, we're going to build a prototype factory.
Yeah.
And we're going to make these edges.
Yeah. Dope.
And they're going to go on our boards.
Yeah.
Do you want to be a part of these edges?
Yeah.
I think you probably will. Anyway, so that's truly what Ken and Drew stole.
Right. Man, oh man.
Was, yes. Yeah. I mean.
Like a part of your soul. Like a
big
piece
time.
of your
Yep.
creativity. And you had that all the way through, right? Like
always.
That was something that was, I'm more of a follower. You're more of a leader. Like I wouldn't have figured out wide stances and fat pants and stomps and riding on rocks on purpose, Yeah,
I just went with who I felt I needed to be, and it's always been pushing things forward.
Right.
And if I couldn't do it, I'm working with someone. Well, why can't they do it?
Right.
It just didn't make sense, And over time, it's like, how much do I have to do for you to think that these are maybe valuable?
Right.
Ideas without stealing them. And that's just what it came to be. It was like, wait, I'm just giving this away. To me, it was for free. I was snowboarding for money.
Yeah.
But being a product developer and all that, as time went on, I thought that might be a separate job.
Yeah, it should have been. Right.
Than beating myself up and progressing the sport and that, my dream. Yeah.
Yeah.
But my dream was also to keep pushing the sport.
So do you feel like maybe a lack of that bean counter mentality might have gotten in the way of that? Like, why didn't you ever find some seed money and do your own thing? Was it just easier to redirect a platform that already existed? Like take Wave Rave and create Quest or what?
I thought so.
Yeah.
And I to my credit, I was a loyal person.
Yeah.
To my sponsors.
Yeah.
But then also to my demise. Like I said, I didn't get to try a lot of different things. I could have probably been paid a lot better.
Yeah.
I probably could have gotten a pro model.
Yeah.
If I'd done some of these smaller companies, but I thought there was potential in Nitro. They made quality boards. They were doing things with the factory, but it just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And when it did, it was, look what we came up with. And it's like, again, what the?
Yeah.
Show the drawing of this from 4 years ago, that meeting we had?
Yeah.
Why did it take so long?
There's no worse feeling in the world. I've been at a meeting where somebody presented my idea that had said, that's the worst idea I've ever seen in my life. Like a week before.
Yeah.
And then is presenting it to the group with, look what I came up with.
Yep.
And it drives you out of your mind a little bit. Actually, am I taking cuckoo pills? Like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah.
And then even that outburst, like, I don't think I ever said anything that direct about it.
Right.
But like saying like, that's my idea. People go, well, why do you care? Who cares? Like, what's the big deal? It's a good idea. Well, yeah, it's a huge deal because it's a fucking, it's somebody stealing my shit and saying that it's theirs.
That's right.
It feels awful.
Yeah.
It's a power dynamic. It's like a reminder of where you are in the world. You're just a scrub snowboarder guy.
That's right.
What are you going to do? Jamie Salter did that to George Pappas on the fucking highest level of, what are you going to do? Sue me. Well, knowing full well,
right.
Jamie Salter's got lawyers.
Yeah.
And George Pappas is a fucking guy who rides snowboards.
Yeah.
Who's like passionate about snowboarding.
That's right.
He doesn't know any lawyers. What's he going to do? Call a fucking lawyer out of the Yellow Pages or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, this snowboard guy. Okay, well, my job is I'm a snowboarder. Okay, click. Yeah. If George would have had family that was a lawyer, the whole snowboard industry would be completely different.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of how many people had that same experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking in your eyes. I believe you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think, why would anyone make that up? Like, I get it. I get it. There is a spectrum that it lives on. Like, sometimes the bean counters know something that we don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a hell of a lot of fucking tooling to make new edges for something that's
Right.
working kind of okay.
Yeah.
Or totally fine. They're still using it to this day.
Yeah.
But, you know, who knows where we'd be if that whole shift thing would have happened.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
We don't know.
no. It would have been a better place.
Yeah. Yeah.
For better sport. People would have had more of what they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing bad about it, really.
Right.
I mean, it was
Right.
for the benefit of the sport.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, of winter sports, for that matter. You know,
Yeah.
skiing was still sort of slumped, and they hadn't really started pressing any of these wider fat skis and stuff either.
With a parabolic side
Yeah.
cut and all that
Yeah,
they
yeah.
basically looked over it like, why are these guys having so much fun?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Remember how the ski industry was like, these skis are more fun. It's like they needed snowboarding to come in
Yeah.
to be like, yeah, fun's a big part of this. Like, why is there no fun
Yeah.
in skiing? It should be really fun.
Super.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're riding chairlifts. You can hit side hits. You can do all the shit we can do.
Yep.
But instead you're stuck with this oligarchy saying, no. I remember seeing it, like instructions on how to do, like they have a name for their turns. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like after the guy who invented this style of turn.
Yep.
We could say, you know, Craig Kelly invented that tuck knee style, like
Right.
tucking your knee in behind the other knee.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, we've got it. You could do a Craig Kelly style turn. You have to change your stance. You have to you got to be kind of back in the board. Mikkel Bang, who's still currently one of the raddest pros in the world, rode Craig's board with Craig's
sweet.
stance.
Nice.
And you could see, like, oh, yeah, Craig's style had to do with everything, like the way he set his board up. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's rad.
Guy's epic.
Yeah,
Human.
epic human.
Period.
Yeah. Did you hang with him a little bit?
As much as I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
But every chance I get, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was that way with a lot of the top people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely felt like an outsider looking in, you know, just because, yeah, that's, I don't know, appreciate those that do well,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it was just inspiring.
Craig, from what I understand, was a consummate professional. Like that he took it very seriously, what he was doing.
He did.
Yeah.
More so than I think anybody else that wasn't doing extreme mountaineering type stuff.
Like Tom Burt,
Like Tom Burt.
Jim
and-
Zellers, Bonnie
Yeah.
Leary. Yeah. Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he was the consummate professional. Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely nothing bad ever to say about him.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Was he in the Sims room that day?
He was riding for Burton at that point. Yeah. Yeah. But it was, yeah, all their top
Yeah.
dudes. It was, yeah. Anyway.
That's a bummer.
But-
And then renting a board.
Oh, it was the most ridiculous thing.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. It was horrible.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So,
But it was, I learned a lot about people and the industry as well.
yeah, you had integrity through the whole thing. Let's talk about the relationship with Hostenek and one of my favorite films, Anthem. You mentioned that there's one from before that called Fat that I have to look. Listeners out there, if someone's got a copy of Fat, you got to either digitize it and send it to me or lend it to me.
I'll lend you my copy.
Yes. Yes.
I will lend you my copy.
I still have a VCR set up in my room. So.
Good. Yeah. I got mine still too, just for those purposes.
Ah, that's dope. That's so dope.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Justin and I just started shooting early,
Yeah.
very early in his and my career. I mean, we were both starting. I was starting snowboarding. He was starting snowboard photography.
Yeah.
And that's how our relationship built. You know, and he was friends with Troy and Trent.
Yeah.
And even pre-twist,
Right.
both Troy and Trent worked at the Wave Rave skate shop.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a very small community, truly, a little skate snowboard community in Boulder, and Justin fit right into that, and definitely, and still to this day is big part of the with the Bushes and Amani King and that whole twist crew. Yeah, so that's how it really just sort of being in the same proximity, getting along. Tarquin was coming up too at that time, and so we all got along, really well, and did some fun road trips, just for photo shoots and different things with him.
Oh, I forgot he was a photographer before he started being a film producer.
Yeah,
he got a lot of shots, a lot of those early shots.
Yeah, he
J-A-H, Ja. Did you guys call him Ja?
Yeah, still Ja.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So the only cover shot that I ever got was Ja photo taken up in Steamboat.
Sick.
Yeah. It was an epic day. Super great powder. It was 20 something below, and then wind chill. It was in the 50 belows.
Jesus.
So it was really cold, and his camera lasted for X amount of pictures, and we got one that was cover worthy.
That's so dope, dude.
And typical of the sponsorship we were talking about with the logo placement and crazy clothes.
Yeah.
Really, I have to wear this? Okay, I'll try and make it work. We'll see how. But so that was all, and he was one of the guys that did like to travel with us to good places, but as he grew, he went into his career.
Yeah.
And Steamboat sort of just stayed smaller and a little more under the radar.
Oh, I see that. Okay, I see how that could happen.
Yeah.
It comes on pretty early that Nitro says no to sponsoring his movie.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever heard of it, but he's like, I don't want to put Nitro in my fucking movie. They said no. So they had to make you boards without graphics.
Yeah, and this was a guy from England that did windsurfing films.
Okay.
And Nitro hired, not Nitro at all. He just wanted to do a snowboard movie.
Yeah.
I don't even know how he got our names, but it was Tim Wendell, Morgan Lafont, myself, Tarquin, 2 people from Britain.
Wow.
That's all I can remember, and the photographer was from Britain, the filmer.
Yeah.
So we had him filming for the first half of the movie. We were in British Columbia, up in Canada.
Oh, sick.
Red Mountain, we were sort of based.
Beautiful.
West Makepeace.
Oh, what a wonderful human being.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So, we did some snowcatting and stuff, and then Justin joined us. We did some heli stuff and snowcatting.
Oof.
Could have been a phenomenal movie, but it was the first time where, someone would say, well, okay, just come straight down this, enormous amount of, we just got heli dropped. Like, where shouldn't I go?
Yeah.
Except straight down.
Yeah.
And then make one big powder turn. And we were like, okay, Justin, when he gets here, he's going to fix it all. It's going to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he just fell into place because, this was his first opportunity probably working with someone. And it was just like, come on, dude. Like, you're going to be the guy that lets us be like, no, we want to go. Like, I'll make 10 turns there, jump that rock. And
yeah, this is snowboarding.
20 more turns here. And
so this guy's just got it in his head that going fast is the thing.
Yeah, one big powder turn, in front of them. And then they wanted, of course, big, ridiculous things that for even the time of year were undoable.
Yeah.
And, I remember it sort of being like, I'll do that. Like, sort of a joke in the group. But
yeah. So what was the name of that project? Did it come out?
Fat.
That's Fat.
That's Fat.
Oh, that's what Fat is.
F-A-T.
See, because I'm thinking Fat would be, I know like your history, and I'm thinking it's going to be fat pants, big stances.
Well,
it's going to be very slow, like resort riding jibbing.
You just really have to see it to appreciate how bad it really is. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't give up the experience for anything.
Right.
But to think of the turns that we didn't have
Yes.
far outweigh the turns that we got.
Yeah.
And that always blew me away.
Did you have a guide at that point, or was it just a helicopter drops you off and you go?
We did have guides to say, here's where you're going. But as to the photographer, they were just saying, here's what we want from this. And it was painful.
I've been on one of those with a Japanese crew for a cigarette ad.
Oh, geez.
But like you say, so like this guy's, he just didn't get it.
No.
And he was paying the bills. He was the one who was paying for everything.
Yeah.
You do this.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I wonder if he made any money back from.
I sure don't think so. I mean, you'll see.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
I'm excited to see it. Dude.
Yeah. But great stories. I mean, Tarquin and I.
Yeah.
We've been very close friends through that time, and couldn't have had a better person to live through that with, like some of the stuff that happened. Like, you can't even believe it, really. Okay, that was real.
And it's documented.
Yeah. We went to Whistler for 2 days, I think, and we had a free day just to go. They're like, just go see what you want to film. And we're like, finally.
Rad.
Yeah, and so I was just riding by myself. I found this like cat track thing where I found a cool air, like up the cat track up to like a fluffy ledge.
Rad.
Yeah, and it just sort of naturally did like a front side board slide on it and came off, and it was like a nice big pillowy landing and a little drop down back onto the cat track. I was like, now that's worth filming. And I was like, we haven't got anything like that.
Yeah.
So we met back whatever time. I'm like, all right, follow me. I got to show you this. So I had the whole group following me, and I went and did what I thought was in the same place, this trick. It looked like it. So I went up and did my front board slide, got off and said, there's nothing to land on.
Oh, no.
But it was just like a tiny, like 2-foot little pillow. And so I just basically went from hitting that pillow to the icy cat track, flat to my back.
Yeah.
Out of body experience. For full on out of body experience. Came to Tarquin's there, Tim or Morgan or whoever, the filmer was there, and I'm just coughing up blood, like just blood coming out. I ended up full lung contusion.
Holy shit.
And a concussion of, from whacking down. So that was the end of my filming.
For the rest of the
I went
trip.
down to the hospital, spent 2 nights in the hospital getting lung tests, and
oh my God.
one lung reinflated, and it just was.
You had a collapsed lung even.
Partially.
Oh wow.
It was a gnarly fall.
I'm sorry to hear that, dude. That's not what Whistler's all about.
It was so fun up until, we really had a great time.
Yeah.
And then we ended up heading back towards Red Mountain. That was sort of the end of the session, but
did you ride at Red?
Yeah.
You were all right.
We did.
Yeah.
But because we had ridden there beforehand.
Yeah.
And that was good. The conditions were not good. And that was the problem.
Yeah.
We just never had good snow. And
it happens. I mean, that's the job of it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You got to fly around to wherever the snow's good.
Yeah. And we did what we could.
Yeah.
And we had good snow, but just they didn't want us to make turns in it. It was just
bizarre,
so weird.
dude.
Yeah.
So then Hostenek, once he goes out on his own, is that Anthem is his first kind of real thing that he did?
I think so.
That was wicked.
So good.
The animation, the music was good. Your guys' attitude was the thing that stuck. Was a favorite in the shop. We would play it for years. We probably played that.
That's awesome.
And we would study the tricks and be like, okay, how do you do that?
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was more a sharing of information of like,
right.
Oh, you could do that. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And
regionally too, it's sort of at that time it would be like, oh, West Coast, East Coast, a little bit more like, oh, this is really cool to see that different flavor as well.
It was one of the first things to take the piss out of snowboarding itself, right? All you guys with sponsors not running Headspace, go find another jump.
Yeah.
Like that was like what was really starting to happen was like, it wasn't the community anymore. All of a sudden, people would show up and be riding the thing you were riding yesterday. They'd set up cameras, and you'd be like, well, I fucking built that. You can't tell me I can't hit it. What are you talking about?
That's right. Oh, yeah, it got really bizarre.
Yeah, it did.
With that. And, yeah, I mean, tons of stories of those spaces disappearing and being claimed and different things. Like, wait, I don't care how much you're paying somebody.
Yeah.
This is national forest you're on.
When did this stuff kind of fall apart and you had to go find a fucking real job or whatever?
Fortunately, I was guiding fly fishing while I was snowboarding
the whole way through.
Pretty much. In '92, I started guiding, and
sweet. So
I had that summertime fallback, and it was great. Yeah, and I want to say 2000 was the last time I took a run, and it was just injuries. Was that what? I forgot even what you asked. Yeah,
like it was basically when do you let the sponsorship stuff go?
Oh, the sponsorship was 98 was the last year.
And then you rode for yourself for a couple of years.
Just snowboarded, with what I had, and worked a little bit coaching these Australian kids that came over for 6 weeks.
Yeah, someone was saying that maybe you had arthritis or something, like rheumatoid arthritis or some major.
Well, not then,
issue.
But they just knee injuries, and I couldn't stop hurting myself. I mean, turning the volume down was not an option. Yeah, and it was just I was making money as a guide fishing, and so I quit. 2000 was the last time I rode. But the sponsorship, Wave Rave ended, and then I didn't really have any. That was after 95.
Yeah,
and I didn't really have any sponsor. Rode for Nitro for a bit, but not a whole lot longer either.
Yeah,
and that was just the usual disagreements.
Yeah,
I mean, they're like, we're paying you too much, and I'm like, what do you mean you're not paying me enough, nor utilizing my talents?
Yeah,
in all these other R&D, product development ways, and advertising. I offered to do clothing. Their clothing sucked. People they hired continued to make it suck.
Yeah,
just never made sense to me. And then so to me it was so ego based. Again, it just came back to egos.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much all of it for me feels like it came back to egos in the industry, and and hence us trying to start the shift thing.
Yeah, and that was kind of just the end of it.
After that, I was like, had no faith in the industry, period, and I just was I'm done.
Peace. Yeah,
really. I mean, I keep track of my friends that did stuff and whatnot, but I sure didn't miss the bullshit.
Yeah. Well, you don't look like somebody who's been sitting around getting bitter about it. Like, even talking about it's pretty matter of fact, but you got like a smile on your face the whole time.
Yeah.
It was fun, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't change any of that stuff. I mean, maybe my attitudes, I wouldn't change anything.
No, man, don't do that.
No.
No way.
It would just, And now, fortunately, I've been in 2019, 2020, and now 2021. I've ridden all 3 years.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. And thanks to Vince and Tracy, I saw that board and I'm like, hey, I think I need one of these. And they, hooked me up, and it's been good, really good.
Yeah.
Very challenging post, something we haven't talked about, but I've had two pretty serious concussions, and one in 2016 and one again this year, 2021.
Holy shit.
That were life-changing. I mean, left me with impairments, permanent impairments, and some of which are spatial impairments, so riding the trees is not an option anymore. A lot of different visual things that make snowboarding very different for me. It's really cool to sort of be back in a really learning.
Yeah, welcome back, first of all.
Thank you.
It's been too long.
It has?
Yeah, 19 years is too long for Quinn Sandvold not to be fucking a part of this community. because your inspiration's still 100% there, man.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, man.
Especially in attitude. Like,
that's awesome.
The attitude was important. You were an advocate for, like, let's not let the kooks run this. Like,
that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Please, come on. We can do this.
Yeah.
So the concussions, you already talked about 2 concussions while you were snowboarding that were knockouts.
Yep.
And I don't know what the statistics are, but it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It gets worse each time. So
right.
Every time, like I only know through Chris Duffy that, he had gotten to the point where he was not allowed to snowboard. He didn't have his doctor's permission.
Right.
But like, I've seen people cry talking about when he was allowed to come back.
Right.
Like, because his passion for it. Chris Duffy is, he's one of the happiest, smiliest, raddest people in the world.
Yeah.
And I mean, big effect to his life with the concussion thing. So, I mean, I wouldn't have guessed from coming in here.
Yeah.
Like, no idea.
Sure.
It's not something that you see outwardly, but it's something that you deal with every day, like inside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was, and snowboarding, and I found snowmobiling last winter also just sort of being a challenge with these different visual things that have changed. Spatial awareness has changed, and can't really ride in the trees if you're not aware of the spaces around, so it's just a different concept of it.
Yeah.
But the thing I found most interesting was once I started riding fakie again, the whole mountain opened up.
Rad.
Yeah, and I've just sort of started riding goofy, probably 90% of the time.
Wow.
And it feels just I can see like more than one turn. Riding regular would be like one turn. I was just living for each turn, and that was not cool on many levels.
Yeah.
It was just really weird. I was just like started like, oh, what if I ride fakie? I'm seeing. I was just like, I can see. Like everything just opened up. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. To where visually, it was just, so I'm gonna just keep riding, powder the best I can, and I get at least a day or two up at Steamboat thanks to a friend that gives me some discount
that's dope.
tickets.
Yeah.
And then pursuing some backcountry stuff.
Fun.
So
yeah,
I've got my ski polk I made.
Yeah.
And I've been doing some borrowing one of the demo split boards from Tracy and Vincent every summer, and did some good exploring last winter.
Rad.
And some overnight camping, and
sick.
Yeah. Well, again, stuff I really wanted to do back in my 20s, and proposed to Nitro.
Wow.
Back then.
Well, they were early on the split board, like way before you were there. They made a weird split board thing, like super early.
Yeah, and this wasn't even as much about the split board, but just like, let's look at snowboarding outside of resorts.
Wow.
And was like, let's buy 2 snowmobiles and rent a RV, and we'll just get the crew together and travel around. And they're like, no, that'll never work. Of course not. Of course, it was like 3 years later, that's exactly what the Burton team was doing.
Everybody had to do that eventually. Yeah.
And it was just, to me, a no-brainer. Like, you're spending all this money flying photographers and people around.
Yeah.
You take one of those trips, we could do everything we need to get and travel the country.
Yeah.
Follow the storms. And like, so anyway, things like that.
That's incredible that you had that forward vision.
And just flat out shut down. I mean, not even like, yes, let's explore this or whatever. But
right.
So it was things like that then I'm like, well, if they're not going to do it, I want to plan it with my friends. I'll buy my own snowmobile. We'll do these trips across the Continental Divide.
Yeah.
Or what, there's snow machine trails that go state to state, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'd like to do some of that stuff now while I'm hopefully physically still able.
I feel that same feeling, dude. I got a sled last year.
Oh, nice.
And it's fucking challenging. But I'm learning to sled in the Whistler backcountry. It's a gnarly spot.
Very gnarly.
Yeah, it's fun though. Oh my God, it's so much fun. Like that's the thing, is that what you're talking about, that vision you have for that thing. Yeah, hell yeah. So you've already done some overnights. It's like,
And
you're
my
getting into
unpowered
it.
snowshoes,
Yep.
like you're saying, just
Oh yeah, totally.
snowshoe split board either way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and just trying to stay within my limits. I'm not doing anything extraordinary.
Right.
But again, from nothing to something is great. And then, yeah,
So glad you're back at it, dude.
it's been good.
Yeah,
My passion to
yeah.
really to keep me here is the
Yes.
outdoors and
Yeah. Yeah.
and that survival instinct and wanting to explore and be outdoors and enjoy all it has to offer. Truly,
Yeah. And I think I'm hearing here, like, there is like an exponential, there's a multiplier for head injury survivors on risk for suicides, like for like gnarly thinking. Like it happens. Am I right on that? Or are you saying here in Colorado, because there's so much stuff here?
what you said
Yeah.
is, I'm really glad that you actually said that, because I think it's so overlooked, even among mental health professionals, as you bring it up, and there's just no understanding until people have passed already
And
to
that
do
fucking sucks, dude.
to
Big
find
time.
out the autopsy of the brain. And
There's a lot going on in that. I think the NFL's probably on its last
yeah,
bit right
Yep.
now because of how actually gnarly it is. And there's so many people. You should watch Learning to Drown. That's Jess Camira. She's had multiple head injuries, and she talks about it.
learning to
Drown.
To Drown.
I'll send you a link to it.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really a powerful piece about how suffering in silence happens with a lot of high-level athletes, especially in snowboarding. There's so much concussion stuff.
Yeah.
There's tons.
Yeah, and other. I mean, just checking things off of a list for someone that's their whole drive. It does take a toll, and as you check more things off that list, yeah, it's a real challenge to get through and to a point where you do feel like you can do things again, even as small as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to bring more awareness of people that do have multiple concussions.
We're starting right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Just that it's overlooked.
It is overlooked for sure.
And the sponsors don't care that you bonked your head,
yeah.
And you need a month or a year.
The pressure there to
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the PTSD. Like there's a couple of people who've talked about it. Not so much on my show, but JP Walker, who's from Utah, has had times where if he can't snowboard, then who the hell is he? You know what I mean? Like, and then he's putting that pressure on himself to perform, to rehab and get his shit. He had a break that was misdiagnosed by a doctor, so he rehabbed it like it was a strain, and then they had to re-break it, and he had to start all over again, like a fucking year of just torture,
And to someone else's discretion is.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, man. So it is really important to talk about. It's really important. How do you get support for yourself? Is it within your community, or are you taking care of yourself?
Yeah, I do the best I can through, mental health.
Yeah.
I've got a good mental health team.
Cool.
After we're done talking in half an hour, you've got to head back to Canada, and I've got to go see my psychiatrist.
Yeah, mental health practitioners are really important support for, anything you're going through that is, I've done it several times. I've had probably a half dozen, maybe a dozen.
Yep.
And sometimes you got to just trade them out.
That's
You're
right.
Like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. This girl's she's projecting her shit on me. That's not right.
It's the right connection.
Yeah. Once you get that, you can breathe.
That's right.
I mean, breathing is a big part of it.
That's true as well. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's life.
Yeah. The very first one, she said, okay, just the standard intake questions. Are you eating 3 meals a day? And I was like, no. And she's like, are you sleeping 8 hours a night? I'm like, no. And she's like, okay, well, why don't you try that for a week and tell me how you feel,
Yeah.
you know? And I was like, can't be that simple, dumbass. I got some serious problems.
Right.
But I did feel a lot better.
True.
I did feel way better. I was like, okay, I got to fucking keep going.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
That's
it's
right.
A keep going thing.
It is
yeah.
Yeah, it is a keep going thing, and it's also a chemical thing for a lot of people, and concussions juggle stuff around. I mean, there's no doubt. Yeah, and pay attention to how you feel, and don't repress it. Truly, yeah. I mean, that's I think the hardest thing, because, like you said, outwardly, no one knows. You don't wear a Band-Aid on your head.
Exactly.
Big cast covering your skull saying "Don't touch."
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And then there's a risk factor. So all the neurologists, every doctor, well, what do I do? Don't hit your head.
Right.
That's the only answer, really. So you do have to protect yourself and still try and live to something that, you know, keeps you happy.
Yeah.
Without checking that off the list.
Right.
Off the list, yeah.
Right. Dude.
So I'm just like psyched to be back and healthy enough to move forward with snowboarding again.
I'm so happy that we had this conversation, dude.
Me too, Erik.
Like,
so a pleasure to meet you.
It was a real pleasure to meet you too, and I've been a fan for a long time, and you've affected my life in a very positive way.
That's
and
really cool.
Part of the reason that I'm here today is because of your snowboarding and your attitude.
That's really cool.
So
that brings me joy.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah,
it was
deeply.
It was super, super rad to meet you, homie.
You too, Erik.
Thanks for having me in your home.
Anytime.
All right. We'll go for a shred.
Anytime.
Yeah, we'll go
Let's
for a
do
shred.
that.
That'll be so fun.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
FNRad shoutouts this week to Quinn Sandvold. I really hope one day to shred with Quinn on a powder day somewhere rad. The Canadian suicide prevention number is 1-833-456-4566. Or if you live in the States, you can call 1-800-273-8255 to talk with someone immediately. If you or a loved one are struggling with suicidal thoughts, please don't hesitate to call. Thanks to the people at those services for caring for us and helping keep us safe. And thanks to all of you for listening to the end. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.